Welcome to Highland League Weekly, the podcast. I'm Ryan Cryle, joined this week by my colleague Calum Law as we discuss all of the weekend's Breedon Highland League action. A full card over the weekend following the previous weekend's disruption from Storm Amy. We're going to start with our main game. Now, we have highlights of this match, Turriff United against Lossiemouth, over on the Press and Journal website in our full Highland League Weekly web show that you can watch by subscribing to the site. But if you just want to chat about the game, you can get all of that here. Game finished, Turriff United 1, Lossiemouth 1. Callum, I felt this was a reasonably entertaining game. Looked like two sort of reasonably well matched sides.
I would say so. I think over the piece, Lossie will be the side that be happier with the point than Turriff, just because I think first half Turriff, I think, did have a fair degree of control, and I think Warren Cummins touched on it after the game. They got into good areas without maybe picking the right option, or it was just the final shot or cross or pass was maybe just that wee bit of quality was perhaps lacking, but they probably had the more of the pressure, and Lossie had to weather that. And obviously there's a penalty, and Stuart Knight makes a good save for Andy Watt, and then after all that, Turriff did get themselves in front and things. And I think, Lossie, with all that being said, and coming from behind and away from home as well, I think that, and I was going to say, you look at the players they'd missing, Sam McLean, Tristan Stephen, Oliver Green, Ryan Matheson, Matty Nicol, Finlay Mackay, Saul Fimister, Ryan Stewart. It's a lot of players to be without, and to come back and get something out of the game. I think, as I say, it feels to me anyway like a better point for them than Turriff overall. But I thought it was two teams sort of trying to go for it in a decent spectacle, and I just over the balance. I mean, probably about right.
Lossiemouth, first of all, the penalty Turriff got, I don't think there's any disputing that was a penalty. It was just a clumsy challenge from the defender, and as you said, great save from Stuart Knight. Should Lossiemouth have had a penalty of their own?
Well, it's easy to say after when you see the state of Owen Loveland's nose, and obviously as a referee can't sort of turn around and go, oh, your nose is in a bit of a mess, I'm going to give the penalty. But what I would say, and I know it happens quite quick, the incident, but I think if it's anywhere else on the pitch, Lossie get a foul. Owen Loveland's got in between the two defenders, and he's played the ball. And then Glenn Donald, I don't think there's any malice or I'm not saying it's he's deliberately going to do him, but the arm and elbow is up and catches him right in the nose, and it's one of them. If that's in the centre circle, they give a free kick. So I'm kind of a wee bit baffled as to why they didn't get a penalty for that. And you sort of saw the frustration when even the physio Ali White was getting booked, which isn't something you see happening every day of the week. But I felt it was a pretty good claim Lossie had, and I think if it had been given as a penalty, I don't think anybody could have had any real complaints. But it's interesting how it maybe works, because that seemed to sort of fire the coasters up a wee bit, and they scored actually a really good equaliser. Lucas Davidson's pass that to put Sean Cameron in, that first time pass, was a real bit of quality, and a good finish for Sean Cameron as well. And overall, you look at Lossie, for their last two league games now, away to Wick and away to Turriff, they've picked up 4 points, which is pretty good going. And it's a strange one for Turriff a wee bit, because out of their, I think they've got 13 points. Out of their 13 points, there's only 2 of those points have come at home. They seem to have had, more success going away from home, and I'm not sure why that is, because traditionally when Turriff have done well, they're usually pretty difficult to play against at the Hawks. But right now, it just seems to be a bit of a struggle for them to really get points on the board at home.
Just a hypothetical question. Obviously a physio, quite a specific role they perform. Say the physio had kept protesting and had received a second yellow card and been sent to the stand. What then happens if a Lossiemouth player goes down injured? Just avoid that situation at all costs.
I presume, I again, would you have to pass the bag on to somebody else? So thankfully it didn't come to that, but it is a hypothetical, but I mean, maybe that's a challenge for Ali White next week to see if he can get ourselves sent off. See what happens.
Okay, 8 other games in the Breedon Highland League on Saturday. We'll start with probably the most eye-catching result, which was Bankside 3, Fraserburgh 1. Now, the visitors led in this one through Paul Young's strike early in the second half, but goals from Magnus Watson, 2 Liam Jewell goals in the last quarter of the game. It was actually 7 minutes. Gave D a deserved win. It felt like in this one that once that kind of first domino fell for Bankside, I mean, Mark Cowie himself, the Fraserburgh boss, spoke about it, that it was 3 situations, 3 times Fraserburgh didn't deal with it, 3 times the ball's in their net.
Aye, I think, I've seen all 4 goals, and it's like, I think between 2 teams that are generally so sort of evenly matched, that it's like any time one side maybe had like 5 or 10 minutes on top, if they were able to really take advantage of that, which Bankside did, it was always going to have likely to be pivotal. I mean, it continues Bankside's great run, like their last 8 in all competitions, that's 6 wins and 2 draws, and you look at their last 2 league games, they've beaten Fraserburgh and they've beaten Brora, and really from where they were a few weeks ago, they've pulled, okay, they're 7 points off the top, but they've pulled themselves right back up there into that mix again. Obviously there's a long way to go, but it does feel, and I know it's early in the season, but that result Saturday and the one against Brora a fortnight ago, or it's actually 3 weeks ago now, sorry, but it does feel like 2 really important results, because if you flip it and Bankside had lost both of them, there'd be a lot, you would say they're out of it, but they've pulled themselves back into the mix, and all credit to them. I think for Fraserburgh, they'll be disappointed in that, from what we've seen of Fraserburgh in recent weeks, they've, against Brechin and Brora the last 2 Saturdays, they've got themselves in front, and then they'd maybe have felt they should have scored more, but they've defended their box really well and been really hard for both Brechin and Brora to create chances against. And I think there was probably maybe that feeling once they got in front on Saturday, you'd have potentially backed to Broch to do something similar. I think the way they sort of I think that would be the frustrating thing for Mark Cowie, is they had that modicum of control being in front, and they lost sort of 2 goals in 2 minutes, and then the whole thing sort of flipped and they were never really able to get back on top again. But that's, you've got to give Bankside credit for that as well, because I mean, although the Broch gave the ball away cheaply, the first goal's a really good finish for Magnus Watson, and then Liam Jewell obviously scored the next 2, but Max Alexander played a big part in both, and I thought, and Paul Lawson rather said it after the game as well, that he made quite a big impact coming off the bench. So, it was just the key moments went Bankside's way, and it's a very good win for them.
Forest Mechanics this season, we've kind of talked a lot about how they've been an improved force, but they lost 2-0 away at Buckie Thistle on Saturday. 2 goals in 2 first half minutes from Josh Peters and Marcus Goodall and Steve McDonald. I think quite frustrated, didn't feel his team laid a glove on the hosts. Aye,
that was kind of the telling quote really, in terms of I think for Forest it's the word you always probably mention is just they're striving for that consistency, and it's been a bit up and down at times. They had a good result in midweek, winning at Strathspey, and then I think just the way that I think the fit was too comfy for Buckie, if you know what I mean, in terms of you can accept losing, but just the manner of how once Buckie got in front, that was kind of it, and it would, for what Steve McDonald said, he didn't feel he saw enough from his team, and I can understand where he's coming from, and he'll also feel the defending for the 2 goals wasn't great either. I mean, the first one, ball over the top, Josh Peters, every credit to him, takes it really well, but Forest, could deal with the situation better. But it's another good win for Buckie, and after sort of a tough patch that they had, you look at the last 3 games, and they'd a draw with Huntly, then beat Huntly in the Scottish Cup, and now they've beaten Forest, and it just feels like they've maybe turned the corner and they're picking up again. And you look at sort of below the top 6, that middle part of the league, it's very, very congested. You've got Huntly, Nairn and Buckie all on 19 points, Devon Vale 18, Forest 17, and all those sides on their day, have shown they can beat anyone. So even like, I mean, they'd all like to be pushing towards that top 6 clearly, but like it's very tough, I think, for anybody to really get on a run because all these teams are so competitive.
One of those sides you mentioned there, Huntly, they won 1-0 away at Clachnacuddin on Saturday. Angus Grant, first half winner for them. Seemed like there was a few chances in this game. I mean, kind of unexpected for me, this one, in the sense that Clach have been going extremely well. Huntly, still not quite too sure what you're going to get from them this season.
No, I think that would be fair to say. Like, they had a good start, and then before Saturday it was 7 games without a win, and then they've gone up to Inverness and they're the first team to win at Grant Street this season, which, you know, tremendous result for them, and maybe that's just the kickstart they've been looking for again. I mean, in terms of an away performance against a really tricky opponent, it probably about as good as you could ask for. Like, they scored a good goal, Angus Grant took it really well, and then second half they had to weather a fair bit of pressure, and you know, Andy McRae's hit a post and there's a few chances towards the end and things, but they've kept a clean sheet. Lenny Wilson's made a couple of important saves and things, and you know, from a Huntly perspective, that was as good as you could ask for. Really a great result. I think for Clach, Conor Gethins was frustrated that he felt it was only sort of towards the end that they really showed the sort of urgency and intensity he was looking for. But I mean, it's, you know, I think this season in all competitions it's 2 defeats in 16 games, so I didn't think there'll be any lasting sort of effect for that defeat for Clach. And I mean, you look, it's interesting as well, like this weekend we've got the North of Scotland Cup final, Clach against Forest, and both teams now probably going into that where they're looking for a bit of a reaction. And I mean, obviously it's a final, you'd expect them to be sort of fired up anyway, but that, I think that has the makings of potentially a really good final if both teams play to the levels they're capable of.
Yeah. Devonvale 2, Brora Rangers 4. This game, I mean, sounded pretty exciting. More exciting than it would have potentially looked at half time. Brora 3-0 up, cruising. 2 goals though in 7 minutes in the second half. So Vale put a lot of pressure on them. I think Jordan McRae got that final goal to kind of end the game as a contest. But I mean, it says a lot about Devon Vale, but we've seen Brora do this before this season as well, haven't we?
Well, Stephen Mackay was speaking afterwards about that Turriff game, that they were 3-0 up, pegged back to 3-3, and then scored at the death, and maybe had echoes of that, although they were never pegged back level. But that's the thing, it's like first half clearly belonged to Brora. They were impressive, took their goals well, a couple of really good finishes. I thought Alex Cooper's and Mark Nicholson's especially good finishes. And then, you know, Devon Vale, they have although they came up short on Saturday, they are developing a wee bit of a reputation as a team that are good at coming back. They've picked up a lot of points from behind this season, and when they got those early goals in the second half through Ryan Park and Jamie McClellan, they would have been fancying their chances, and I think they'd one cleared off the line as well after that. And you know, fair play to them. Obviously Gary Wood was quite right in what he said afterwards, that you can't afford to give any team 3 goals at a start really, but especially a side as good as Brora, and ultimately that's what's cost them, that they just hit, you know, they've given themselves too much to do, and obviously when they're pushing towards the end and things, you can't get picked off, and Jordan McRae's given Brora that security. But I mean, I think positives and negatives for both teams. I think they're both managers be happy with 45 minutes rather than 90, but ultimately for Brora, a good win away from home and back to the top of the league again, which is always where they like to be. And the other sort of bits of good news they had was signing Jack Walker on loan for Inverness, Buckie Thistle before the game. And I know just with like Colin Williamson, Michael Finnis and that maybe struggling a wee bit when injuries and things, and like Wallace Duffy stepped away in the summer, I know they've sort of been keen to try and bolster their central defensive options, and Jack Walker, somebody who, you know, did well on loan at Forest and had a spell at Nairn where maybe injuries affect him a wee bit. I think he's a player with a lot of promise that could do well there. And they also tied Craig McKenzie to a new contract till the summer of 2029 as well, so you know, good day all round for the Cars.
Yep. Inverurie Locals 1, Brecon City 2. In this game, it was 1-1. Corners from the left met at the back post by Keane Sweeney, who squared for Ben Armour to put Brechin in front, though 3 minutes later it was 1-1. Ethan Cairns finding the corner of the net for Locos. Winner came in 52 minutes when a cross was deflected into the Locos net, giving Brechin all 3 points. Again, it's a similar thing for me, this one, because I'm looking at it going, well, Locos have competed with Brechin in this game. Brechin, as they do, have managed to find a way to win.
I will remake an incident after that, like for them, just finding a way to win and sort of getting the job done really was their main objective after being quite disappointed with the defeat to Fraserburgh last week, and they've done that. I mean, in Inverurie, Dean Donaldson felt the first half was probably as encouraging as he's seen all season, and I can see why. They scored a good goal and the 3 or 4, decent openings and things without taking them. Second half, I think, once Brechin were ahead, it seems like they kind of controlled it after that, and it's a good victory, but it's, I think it just maybe shows where, when you sort of compare the two teams, where they are at the minute right now. Like Inverurie, you kind of felt on paper at the start of the season they had the makings of a good squad, and I mean various things have sort of gone against them, but you still sort of feel like they're not far away from it sort of clicking potentially, and they could maybe go on a really good run, but right now it's just not in games like that on Saturday, just not quite happening. But I mean Brechin are a good side, and even like Mitchell Finlay that got the winner, he's somebody who he's come in, I think he scored 7 goals now this season. It's like they've got good. I know obviously Grady McGrath's probably the one they would sort of you'd expect to get a lot of goals, but like Findlay's done well, Mitch Taylor's done well, Ben Armour, having had a sort of injury hit start to the season, he's got that goal that'll maybe sort of get him going as well. So I think the sign, despite the result last week, I think the signs overall for Brechin are pretty positive, and I mean we'll touch on it further, but they're right in there at the top end of the league and what's shaping up to be a very exciting league. Yeah.
Nairn 0, Keith 2. First half double from Mikey Ironside won this one for the Maroons. Ended a 5-game Nairn winning streak, and the headline statistic was that although we thought Keith may never win away from home ever again, for the first time in 7 months they have done so.
Aye, well, it's, to be fair, you do like 2-3 months of a break in the summer where you're nae playing games, so I think that's maybe a start that's slightly skewed by a few things, but a really good victory for Keith given the run Nairn have been on. And I mean, it's like, it seems to be the key for them is when Mikey Ironside scores, they seem to win, because he scored against Huntly when they beat them, and another clean sheet will be most welcome as well, because I know that's something. There's been a few games where Craig Ewan's kind of been frustrated with the sort of manner the goals have lost, and which is obviously then maybe giving them too much to do. So to sort of see it out in the way they did the second half, I know he was really pleased with that. And it's like I've said it about Keith and other teams as well, but it's like when the way the league is, when Keith play well, we've seen it already. They can get results against anyone, but it's like I've said about Forest and other teams as well. It's that consistency of trying to do it regularly. But maybe they can, after a really encouraging performance and result, they can build on that and put a wee run together. Now, I think for Nairn, Wayne McIntosh's quotes are quite interesting afterwards in terms of he felt just from the outset his players were complacent and felt like, if we turn up with the way we're playing, we'll win the game. And he felt it didn't work hard enough, and if that's the case, generally you'll come out on the wrong side of the result, and that's what happened.
Rothes won Formartine United 5. Rudy Duncan's penalty was cancelled out Glenn Murrison's first half goal for Formartine in this one. Before the break though, Murrison scored again, and then amid all this, Ronan McAllister, Hamish Ritchie both at the crossbar. Tyler Makita, Scott Adams and Michael Dangana scored further goals in the second period, so it became, Callum, quite a sort of quite a big margin of victory for Formartine, but I suppose if you're Rothes and you want to take some positives from it against a team you're probably not expected to get a result against, you know, they're level for a period in the game, or they draw themselves level in the game.
I mean, Formartine have done their job really well, clinical stuff, and as you said, probably could have been on another day, might have been more, and they just sort of continue, you know, their very good form of this season. They're going really well, and you look at that top end of the league, you know, Brora 30 points for 12 games, Formartine 30 points for 13, Breedon 29 points for 13, Fraserburgh 29 for 14, and then below that Clachnacuddin 25, Banks of on 23, and it's kind of good, shaping up to be really exciting. And again, there's a long way to go, but even at this stage, it's set up really nicely. And I mean, Formartine, the progress, obviously had the big overhaul in the summer, but the progress they've made this season and to be where they are now, and I know they would have liked to win the cup last week, but you know, getting to the cup final as well and being where they are in the league, the signs are all really encouraging for them. And I think, you know, they've shown already they do have, I mean, you've obviously got to go and do it, but I do think they've shown they have what it takes to sustain a challenge, you know, right the way through the season and be in the mix right to the end. So we'll see what happens, but I think they've got the capability to be up there. For Rothes, I mean, I think what would be frustrating is like the way the maybe game gets away for them again in the second half a wee bit, whereas like even if you're going to lose, you would like to, you know, not lose sort of 4 or 5, and you know, you'd want, I know it's a very tough game for them, but you'd want to try and be more competitive, and I do worry for them in terms of getting a wee bit detached at the bottom, because they're already 6 points behind Lossiemouth. And there's a big game this weekend. The two of them are meeting at Grant Park, and it's like, you know, if Rothes don't get something out of that game and they fall and they're then further adrift, I would just be concerned about them becoming a wee bit detached. So I think, as you said, games against Formartine won't define their season, but they're needing to sort of try and, I think, be harder to sort of play against or harder to score against, and then if they can do that, then they'll give themselves more of a chance, because we have seen they do carry a goal threat when they get forward. But
okay, one more game to discuss from Saturday. Wick Academy 2, Strathspey Thistle 1. I mean, Wick feels like a decent upturn from them of late, but the headline being a 90th minute substitute. Louis Hancock was the player who scored the winner in this one. I mean, Gary Manson, that's, you know, you deserve a bit of credit for that. You've thrown him on.
And that looks like a master stroke, does it? Especially almost like he knew. He's like, I'll just hold. He was saying he did because you only get the 3 intervals to make subs. He didn't want to put him on too soon and then maybe be unable to make another sub if he needed. So he just waited, and you know, he's come on late on, and then with the last kick of the ball, popped up with the winner. So every credit to Louis Hancock, and that's a good win for Wick. And after, I know, a few weeks ago when they got beat at home at Lossiemouth, Gary was quite disappointed and was with a few things, but since then, you know, a really good result against Rothes in the Scottish Cup, and then that sort of hard fought win against Strathspey, who we know were a good side. So that's encouraging stuff for Wick. I think for Strathspey, Ryan Essence was really disappointed with both the goals they lost. They were avoidable, and it's frustrating as well that they didn't take something, because Josh Ray scored a terrific equaliser, and you know, for that alone, you know, he probably didn't deserve to be in the losing side, because it was a really good goal, which he's capable of that. The spectacular Josh Ray, he scored a few like that, but I just defensively, I think, disappointing, and the last 3 games have all been a bit of a similar pattern for them. They've lost all of them 2-1, but like lost late goal at Wick on Saturday, late goal against Dundee North End in the Scottish Cup, and then in midweek against Forest they're edged out 2-1 in that. So like, they're not far away, but they're just at the moment, I think, getting punished for wee mistakes here and there, and you know, it's a cruel game. If you switch off a wee bit, you'll get punished. But the only other thing I would say is, and it's the first time we've had a chance to mention on here, but they've done some sort of eye-catching recruitment, I would say, in the last week or so, Strathspey, in terms of getting George Robinson on loan for Ross County, who's somebody that has done well, you know, and he's been in the league before with Brora and Clachnacuddin there, and he's a live wire. And then Matthew Wright coming in from Brora. I mean, he sort of took a break for football at the end of last season for sort of various reasons, but he now is sort of ready to come back. And you know, Strathspey, a sort of new start for him, and once he gets up to speed, I think we've seen Matthew Wright before. He's got the potential to score goals regularly at this level and be a really good player at the level. So Strathspey will be hoping he can be that for them.
Yeah. Okay, for those of you watching, let's have a look at the latest Breedon Highland League standings. That's it then for this week's Highland League Weekly, the podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks to Callum for being here to discuss all of the weekend's action across the Breedon Highland League. Just a reminder from that packed fixture card, if you'd like to watch highlights of Turriff United against Lossiemouth from the Hacks on Saturday, you can do so over on our main Highland League Weekly web show, which is available to Press and Journal subscribers. So take a look at that if you're interested. The next time we'll be with you will be next week. In the meantime, please keep up to date with everything from us via our social media. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on all the places you could possibly hope to find us. And yeah, until we see you next, or you hear from us next, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching.